Hello and welcome to Türkiye Talks. We are going to talk about the latest protest movements in Iran. I am joined by Kadir Üstün from Washington and Hakkı Uygur, the head of Iran. Welcome both.
Thank you, Bora.
Hakkı, let's start with you. From time to time, we see big protest movements in Iran. It took place during Ahmadinejad's time before the elections, the Green Movement. Many protests took place. Some were regarded as uprisings, some were regarded as a challenge against the regime. This time, a Iranian woman, a Kurdish origin woman, died in custody. And this sparked violence all around Iran. And so far, it's been almost 2 weeks, and so far we have seen over 70 dead during the protests. So in the Western media, again, people talk about a demand for a regime change. Meanwhile, Iranian government presents a different scenario. So, as an expert on Iranian affairs, how do you see these latest developments in Iran?
Yeah, thank you very much again for inviting me. As you just mentioned, Iran is a country which, this kind of demonstration we are witnessing since the beginning of Islamic Revolution. But on this particular issue, I mean, compulsory hijab or, obligation of Islamic dress code, is still one of the most challenging and disputed issues in the Iranian society. If you look at the headlines in the Iranian newspapers from the beginning of the revolution, religious leaders of Islamic revolution, such as Ayatollah Khomeini or Ayatollah Khamenei, used to say that there will be no obligation on women. But due to some reasons, some historic reasons, cultural reasons, after 2 or 3 years, Khomeini issued a fatwa and they banned the women without, headscarf and Islamic dress codes. So from that time, we have this issue some time to time, becoming public. And of course, all of you visited Iran, and in recent years especially, this Islamic, the dress code hijab was not like before. Most of women was not very serious on that. And the actually police or other security forces was not very involving in this issue. But just after, after Raisi came to power, it seems that this kind of, check and control by police became more serious. And in recent months, we saw lots of video in social media in different Iranian channels showing that police forces beating women and taking into custody, and there are lots of such kind of issues. So this death of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old woman, as you said, Kurdish origin woman, was not the first time. That's why people, especially women, are very angry, and they are saying how many times we need to be killed by such a, let's say, stupid reason that we don't have a proper hijab. On the one hand, again, because of, thanks to social media, they are sharing some of the, relatives of high-level Iranian officials from United States, Canada, or other European countries, even from Turkey. They don't have any kind of hijab. That's why people are angry. And from the first day, because this girl was from Kurdish province, Saqqez city, we saw that lots of demonstration and protests happened in Kurdish cities. And again, as you may know, Kurdish cities in Iran, from the very long time, were very politicized, and they are very, let's say, ready to this kind of, protests and demonstrations. As you said, we saw in 2009, and we saw it in 1999, the students' movements. I was at Tehran University at that time, I remember. There were lots of demonstrations and clashes between police forces and students. So Iranian society, some kind of used to get it with this kind of demonstration. And yes, it's true that more than 80 cities or, towns until now happening this kind of clashes or, fights between security forces and people. But I think at the end of the day, maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, again, like we saw before, government will take control and the situation will be normal again.
Kadir, if you don't have a question, I want to ask a follow-up question. I mean, in many cases, when something happens in Iran, we know that there are internal dynamics, as you have mentioned, but whenever something like this happens, we see a lot of international involvement. I mean, Western maybe NGOs or groups or governments, they immediately start supporting the protest movements, and this in a way has an impact on the internal dynamics. Even people want to support the protesters. They don't want to be seen as the tools of the international network, let me say. Do you think this is happening again, and in a way stopping a genuine protest movement in Iran? Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, as you said, we remember that in 2009, when this grim moment happened, millions of people, especially in Tehran, were in the streets. But at that time, Barack Obama was the president, and the only thing, was important for him, it was a nuclear deal. Of course, the nuclear negotiations between Iran and the United States and P5+1 did not start at that time. But after that, we knew that Obama sent some letters to Khamenei and told him, I'm not after the regime change Iran, I will not use military option, but let's fix this nuclear issue between Tehran and Washington. So this time, I think, yes, we saw some statements from EU and from, United Nations and even United States. They condemned the situation, they condemned the violence of the, security forces, but I didn't see any concrete, any practical support. Of course, they said, we will provide this Starlink internet connection, but until now we don't know how it will work, because as usual, again, government cut down internet and all other, social media applications such as WhatsApp, Instagram, others. Lots of restriction happened as usual. Yes, demonstrations doesn't want to seem as a tool of foreign, powers, but actually there is not such a help, such a support. Only people outside, and one of the main reasons for that, I think this government, especially United States, know Iranian, society very well, politics very well, and they don't see any real and serious possibility of change. That's why they don't want to support. Maybe Israel in this sense as an exemption, because they are always active, and I saw some statements from Foreign Ministry of Israel, and even in Persian language, they shared lots of comments and support for Iranian women. But at the end of the day, as I said in a TV show yesterday, Iranian society, Iranian country is a very big one. 90 million people living there, with very big cultural and historical power. So it's not easy from outside to change something essentially. Yes, outside powers can involve some kind of support. It's always possible, but at the end of the day, Iranian people will decide their fate as they did in 1979.
Kadir, how this incident is being monitored in Washington? On the one hand, we know that this is an ongoing story. Always Iran has that kind of movements, but at the same time, the United States is in kind of negotiations with the Iranian part about its nuclear program. Do you think this is related to this? In a way, how Washington sees this incident?
Well, it's definitely like Hakkı said it's a different sort of situation right now as opposed to 2009. 2009, Obama was very focused on the nuclear deal, and Green Movement at the time, they couldn't get much support from outside, from Washington. I see today that Biden administration is more willing to make, at least rhetorical support, provide rhetorical support to what's happening on the ground, the protesters. So it puts additional pressure on the Iranian regime, but at the same time, like Hakkı said, it shouldn't look like these protests are, being managed or helped from outside, because then it takes away from the sort of authentic, genuine nature of these protests. At the same time, I feel like the nature of demonstrations is also different today. There is clearly a generational divide. This lady was 22 years old. Young people, we would already, we could guess that they were disenchanted with the regime and all that. But now, so many women are actually willing to just defy that regime with their lives. So that's very significant. I think I agree with Hakkı. It's not going to probably result in a regime change anytime soon. However, it is a very unique challenge. And I was looking at some statistics, women jailed or warned or getting sort of harassed, let's say, over the past years. The numbers are really high. Millions of people are being warned every day, and if they open their headscarf, hijab, they are jailed. So there is all that background, ongoing pressure, and now this outburst of resistance. So I think it is a significant development. It is from within the country. It's genuine, and of course, this generational divide is very stark, right? The Khamenei is said to be very sick. He could be, passing away soon. He's 84, I think, 82, something like that. And then these young people demonstrating, 22, they have a very short political memory in many ways. So this is important, I think. And I wanted to ask Hakkı about potential implications of, Khamenei passing away. I mean, what is being talked about in Washington is, it could be some sort of a transition, orderly transition, and then maybe instead of one person, a group of mullahs could continue, but are they going to have a more sort of conciliatory approach, or are they going to double down? All we know from the past is often the regime doubles down and resorts to harsh tactics to sort of prevent any kind of protests from occurring. But in the absence of Khamenei, do you think that route may be possible? Are they going to be able to use force and pressure as they used to, or are they going to have to adjust to the new realities and the demands of this new generation?
Actually, Bora.
Please.
Yeah, actually, it's a very important factor. I wanted to, underline this issue. The only thing could, make much bigger this demonstration is about the Khamenei. One of the main slogans in the streets was about Mujtaba Khamenei, the son of the Ayatollah Khamenei. Why? Because there are some rumors, speculations, could Mujtaba could take his father's place, actually replace his father as a next supreme leader. Or we know Ayatollah Reisi, the current president, also there is possibility to sit in this supreme leader's position. But we need to remember, you know, that in Iran there are lots of influential political leaders, which they are, you know, more than 40 years they are in power. Like Hassan Rouhani is a very important figure. Like Ali Larijani, the former Speaker of Parliament. Like Hassan Khomeini, the grandson of Ayatollah Khomeini, the, you know, a founder of Islamic Republic. If these people think that we will, you know, put aside from the power with the next supreme leader, because considering their, you know, their age, like, you know, they're in 50s or early 60s when it comes to president, they will shape for the next 20, 30 years of Islamic Republic. And this happened when Khomeini, you know, died. Ali Khamenei and Hashim Rafsanjani then, you know, put aside, like, you know, Musavi Ardebili, Ayatollah Ardebili, Ayatollah Muntazir, etc. If this moderate and reformist figure, Mohammed Khatami, one of them, thinks that they will put beside by the IRGC and new, you know, supreme leader, then they could support the streets. And it will be a very important factor as we saw this in 2009 in Green Movement. Green Movement was not just only, you know, a rift or, you know, fight between the people or government, but it was a big rift inside the government. As we remember, one of the first things Ahmadinejad did, he took the Minister of the Intelligence, because he said that he knew people will come to streets, but he didn't inform me. So this kind of, you know, possibility is always there. And actually, you know, last week, Ayatollah Khamenei was not on the scene, and everybody talked about why he's not here. He canceled some of his schedules. So some even US, you know, newspapers reported that he had a surgery, and we saw some reports he had actually 2 surgeries, and his health condition is not very good. Everything in Iran, actually in recent years, not just one this year or these months, is about Khamenei's, you know, successor, because it's a very important issue. In IRGC, there are some fights between some groups. In, you know, conventional army, there are some, you know, again, Rouhani has some close relationship with some of the commanders of the conventional army. So it will not be easy transition. I don't know which one, because the Khubregan, Mejlis Khubregan, as I say, you know, these ulama or, you know, let's say clerics will choose the next supreme leader. But they gathered when Khamenei was sick, and we saw around 30 people did not join the meeting. Even when Khamenei was sick, they tried to, you know, avoid from the, you know, participating in this meeting. So it shows that there are some, you know, disagreement about the next supreme leader, and it will affect everything inside Iran, in my opinion.
Hakkı, just to follow up on that. So, you know, the Iranian Revolution was about bringing down monarchy as much as it was about other things as well. So Mujtaba Khamenei, if he takes over, that's another sort of father to son situation. So if there is no obvious strong candidate for Khamenei's position, and I think, I don't know, you know better, like, is there somebody who could actually have that kind of credibility and fill his shoes, or could they proceed without a, you know, leader, just run the country as a group, maybe come together? These names you mentioned, could they just operate without a supreme leader announced?
Actually, you know, when it comes to Velayat-e Faqih, when Khomeini created this for the first time, he imagined that for the highest level of Shia clergy, you know, the Shia clerics, the highest level. But when Khomeini died, no one, you know, waited or expected Mr. Khamenei could replace him. Even we saw some videos in recent years, just after 30 or so years, Khamenei himself at this, you know, session after Khomeini's death, he says, I cannot sit in this position because I'm not mujtahid. He was saying, you know. So the politics always, you know, much more important than, you know, some kind of fiqh or, you know, Islamic, you know, teachings or thoughts. So I think Mujtaba has a chance because he has more, power than his father used to have at that time, and his age is more than his father, and he is Sayyid too. Being Sayyid from Prophet's family is an important factor in Shia and Iran. And the most important thing, he is managing his father's office more than 20 years. So he is he knows everything very well. IRGC commanders, others, etc. But before Mujtaba Khamenei, everybody was thinking Mr. Raisi will replace him. Son of love of Ayatollah Alam al-Khuda, the important guy in Mashhad, Imam Reza Sharain, and he will took the place. But Mr. Raisi did not, show any, success in his short term of presidency. His speeches, he is not good khatib, he cannot talk very well. And, he is not very familiar with politics. He is doing lots of mistakes when he speaks. So they say, because we cannot be sure, there are lots of things, as I said, he is not like Rouhani. Rouhani was a very powerful man and he knew politics, etc., everything. But Raisi is not like that. So it seems that the chance of, Mujtaba is getting bigger and bigger. When it comes to, monarchy, they have an answer for that. Just, last month, one of the, Imam Jumas, one of the clerics, they said, as Mujtaba of Imam Ali, Hazrat Ali, means Hazrat Hassan, took place of his father's place, our Mujtaba can also took place of his father Ali. So bring in some examples from Islamic history, etc., they can find an excuse. This is the most important thing for ulama, is easiest thing for them. They can find some, clues from Islamic books, etc. But I think Iranian people's reflection will be very important reaction, actually, because as you said, there are lots of difference between new generations. They have social media, they have, internet connections, like everywhere in the world. So I'm not sure they will accept a new supreme leader with like Raisi or even Mujtaba. So we will see what will happen, but it will not be very easy.
I want to go back to the protests again. If you also mentioned the Green Movement in 2009, we remember Hüseyin Musavi was the leader of the Green Movement, and the Iranian government at that time crashed all the protests, and most of the leaders, not only Musavi and Mehdi Karroubi, but also the leaders in the street, the mid-level group leaders, they were sidelined, imprisoned. So the movement was in difficult situation. I wonder, do you have any idea or information who is the leader? Is there a leader in this new movement? Can it turn to a political movement, or this is just protests here and there with different under different groups, under different local leaders maybe? Do you see any organization behind it, a big organization, a big leader?
Actually, in this current, protest, we don't see any leadership. Yes, we see some, people in different cities and some activists outside of the country, because they are not in Iran. They cannot, become like, leaders of this uprising. But as I said, we see a lot of Kurdish cities and even Kurdish media playing very active role in this sense. And if you look at today news, Iran sent lots of missiles to Erbil and other places in northern Iraq. And now there is a huge reaction inside Iraq and inside Iran between Kurds groups. They are criticizing Iranian regime. And of course, in this Persian media, again, is playing very crucial role, especially in London-based ones, Iran International, BBC Persian, etc. But we cannot talk about any leader. These guys, leading the movement. Of course, there are some groups, professional groups, like, Mujahideen Khalq, like, Pahlavi, the son of monarchy, or, Masih Ali-Najat, the woman, she is leading the White Wednesdays protest against, Islamic hijab. But they are just trying to using the situation and making for themselves, professional gain. Otherwise, I don't think the people in the streets see these people as their leader.
What about this Kurdish tone of the protest? I'd like to talk a little bit about this. Mahsa Amini, she was 22 years old, Kurdish girl. So we have seen not only Iran, but also in the region, in other countries, many Kurdish groups and political groups and even extremists and radical, they all came together and they, in a way, wanted to make this as a case about the Kurdish aspirations. Do you think this can evolve into a Kurdish movement in Iran? We know that there are over 5 million, maybe 6 million Kurds living in Iran. They have also their problems. What can you tell us about this?
Kurdish society inside Iran is always very active one, very dynamic one. It's not just something new. Even if you remember the Islamic Revolution in 1979, it was the first place they tried to get some kind of, let's say, autonomy from the central government. And I don't want to mention, World War II when Russia came and created some regional structures. But they couldn't because new army and IRGC went there and killed lots of Kurdish people, and they settled down to station. After that, again, we saw lots of uprising from Kurdish side, but the problem is Kurds don't have enough power to tackle with, against regime. So this time, I don't see any change. Yes, they can take control some small cities like they did again, but the main body of the society, mainly Persians or Turks, when they didn't support Kurdish people, they cannot gain anything. Yes, I know they have very, clear solidarity between other groups, like we saw in Turkey. Some, politicians, shaved their hairs to show their solidarity, or even Masoud Barzani called the Mahsa Amini's father and sent their, condolences. But at the end of the day, they cannot put a lot of effect on Iranian policies because basically they are not Shia, most of them, they are Sunnis. But at the end of the day, again, they don't have enough power. But we can be sure anytime they get opportunity, they will try to do the same thing, autonomy or independent Kurdish states inside Iran, but not now.
Okay.
Hakkı, so it is related to what you mentioned. What I want to ask you is, there were some clashes, attacks. The Iran claimed that they were attacking Payjak. I don't know if how accurate that is, but it seems to me like they need some sort of diversion of attention away from these protests. Do you think they might do other things in the region that could potentially impact Turkey and Iraq and other countries? Because, this has been in an international media, it's putting a lot of pressure on them, and maybe it could influence the nuclear negotiations, it weakens their hands, etc. So they need something else to talk about.
Actually, yes, it's right. Especially timing is very questionable. Why now they are attacking it? But on the other hand, we should remember that Iran is preparing this kind of attacks for a long time. Just 2 weeks ago, we organized a panel and we talked about this possibility because they were threatening Iraq. And if you remember, they bombed Erbil several times. They are blaming them to have cooperation with Israel and Mossad, etc. Iran is very worried on the Kurdish side of Iraq. That's why they are preparing. Even as you said, they can go further, and I will not be surprised if they have even territorial, military operation. I mean, from the ground, if they go inside the Iraq, because their main measure was the militia forces inside Iraq, as we know all, after Saddam Hussein gone. But recent developments in Iraq, especially when Muqtada Assad started to oppose Iran's presence, these militia groups are weakened very much. And considering, the death of Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi Muhandis, Iran doesn't have enough power to deter these other groups. So maybe like Turkey did, in recent years, there are some bases in border to prevent terrorist groups to filter inside the country. Maybe Iran can do similar thing. But other possibility, if you ask, for me as an Iranian observer, Azerbaijani issue is very important one. Because same threats I am seeing coming from Iran and from very, very high level, you cannot ignore them, Like Ayatollah Khamenei said to Mr. President Erdogan in last visit to Tehran, or Iranian General Staff, Chief of Staff, Commander Bakri, General Bakri, said last time we will not allow anyone to change borders. The change of borders for them, to, Karabakh issue. Because maybe we can talk on other program, but Karabakh issue for Iran is a vital one, and they consider it as a, domestic threat for themselves. Maybe they can do such attacks to create a nationalist, wave to stop people and, take attention.
Actually, when I was saying maybe other places, that's exactly what I meant, Hakkı, because, from the Azerbaijan-Armenia war, where Turkey supported Azerbaijan, Iran looked like they were kind of dumbfounded, like they didn't expect it to happen. And they're quite worried, and that's along their border. So that's actually along with northern Iraq and Peshak, operations. Of course, throughout the region, Iran has many things it can do, but that's why I was saying it could impact Turkey directly if there is more tension in that area, as a way to take attention away from internal difficulties that the regime is going through. And if Khamenei passes away soon, there will, I don't know if there will be some sort of short-lived chaos that could have serious implications for the region as well. So that's going to be, you have to watch.
Okay, my final question to you, how long do you think this will take? This protest, do you think it will continue for days or weeks, or do you expect the Iranian government to take it under control soon? What is your expectation?
I think government will take control soon on the streets, but low-profile protests will continue. Like we saw today, lots of small demonstration inside, universities. 30, 40 university students came together and, chanting some kind of slogans. Or more simple than that, some women without headscarf, they are going to, parks, they are going to restaurants and sitting, etc. So this kind of low-profile protest, I think, will continue. And the government cannot stop it because it's not violent, or lots of people, you cannot do basically anything. But streets and fighting and, this kind of big protests, I think they can take control very soon.
Thank you very much, Hakkı. You are one of the most probably relevant person to talk about Iran in Turkey. Hakkı Uygur is the president of Iran Research Center, Iran. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting. Always very good to talk to you both.
Thank you, Kadir.
Thank you, Hakkı.
So
Thank you, Bora.
hope to see you next time. Thank you.